Welcome back to the channel, folks. We are continuing our conversation about liberty in flux. And if you're like me and you've been watching the political news, then you know that the Supreme Court just ruled in favor of Donald Trump. We're also going to get into our conversation about Nikki Haley's win in the Washington, D.C. primary and what this means for our country moving forward. So we're going to get right into it right after this. Okay, folks, welcome back to the channel. So we're continuing our series entitled Liberty in Flux, and we're going to watching the Republican contention or battle between former President Donald Trump and Governor Nikki Haley. And how this all kicked off was that Colorado and several other states had ruled that Trump was ineligible for office based on the 14th Amendment's insurrection ban. And this case went to the Supreme Court. And what we just found out not too long ago is that the Supreme Court made a unanimous ruling in favor of Donald Trump, that he actually stays on the ballot, even though we know that his legal perils are just starting. Wow. This shouldn't come as a surprise, right? That Trump was going to stay on the ballot. Well, let's back up for a second and have a discussion about what it means about the 14th Amendment's insurrection ban. And to sort of summarize it, it falls under the line of causing insurrection as a president, that you would be ineligible to run for president again, right? It's one of the things that we put into the 14th Amendment of the Constitution to protect our democracy. And the Supreme Court was unanimous in their decision that Trump did not violate this, and therefore he could stay on the ballot, where he is projected to be the presumptive GOP nominee. Although news coming out of D.C. that Nikki Haley won Washington, D.C. Now, here's what's interesting between this battle between Nikki Haley and Donald Trump, is they're almost split in suburban communities. They're also, I believe that Trump is behind by 37%, where it's Nikki Haley wins the college-educated voters. Nikki Haley wins like 63% or something like that. However, what we know is that Trump is going to utilize this Supreme Court ruling to fuel his campaign and possibly enriching himself. Is that the right word to say, enrich himself? Yeah, enrich himself as far as his political aspiration goes, right? So here we are once again in this circus that is Donald Trump, which you have to, I'll say this, you have to give this guy credit, right? One of the things that is so frustrating about someone like former President Trump is his ability to push through in spite of perceived obstacles. Now, to the common viewer, a lot of us will catch this, whether it's on, CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. We'll say, they're going to take him down because he's got 92, accusations against him, felony charges against him. His legal woes are just starting. There's no way that Trump is going to be able to continue his run to become the GOP nominee. And yet, even though Nikki Haley won Washington, D.C., it's just a small boost for her and her supporters. And this gets us back to what we were discussing in our first episode on liberty being in flux. Here we have someone like former President Donald Trump, who the Supreme Court unanimously decided that he did not violate the 14th Amendment, and therefore he must stay on the ballot. So all of those states that were looking to make decisions to take him off the ballot will now have to put him on the ballot. Therefore, almost securing his position as a GOP nominee. I just don't see support coming for Nikki Haley. So it looks like we're going to end up with a Trump versus Biden in November. Now, tomorrow is Super Tuesday, and I'm putting this episode out a little bit early because I believe that the results are going to not surprise us. Although that's somewhat challenging. I know that if you're like me, I caught Nikki Haley having a discussion about some of the presumptive moves that the Republican Party is making, because even they're assuming Trump's going to be the de facto nominee. And she is saying that if this happens, that in essence, Donald Trump will be using the Republican Party as his playpen, as if he hasn't already. So here's the thing, folks. As we look at this political cycle, and we're looking at this, it's not even a battle or a contention or people throwing their hats in the ring. It really is Trump dominating the headlines, how he is able to bend our political system to his will, so to speak, so that he can clinch the GOP nominee. And the only contender we have is former Governor Nikki Haley, and she doesn't seem to have any steam, or she may run out of steam fairly soon. I don't know what you think, but we should all be concerned about what's happening. I don't hear much from President Biden's campaign. I know that Vice President Kamala Harris is off to try to negotiate a ceasefire. What's happening there in Gaza, that's not even dominating the headlines. I don't know where you stand in this political arena, but shouldn't we all be just a tad bit concerned that there are not a lot of people willing to step up to the plate to try to bring some balance in this seat, to cross bridges for the benefit of the American people? Shouldn't this be something that we're all concerned about? That we should all look in our respective parties and say who will stand and speak for us? There are rumors that Trump has increased his acquisition of black voters, and our research shows that's just not true. Black and Latino voters, that's just not true. I mentioned last episode that I had spoken to some people of color who were leaning more towards Trump because they felt like the Democratic Party has let them down. And that was only one or two, and that is not in any way scientific. Those are just casual conversations that I'm having with people regarding what they're feeling. The economy is pinching each and every one of us, rents are through the roof. We have a migrant problem. Borders are being flooded, as if you're watching the mainstream media, as I do from time to time. Food prices are through the roof. Unemployment, yes, is low. And you've got a bank that's doing a massive layoff. And we have a commander-in-chief right now who seems to be very quiet on the subject, or doesn't seem to inspire me. I don't know if he inspires you, that he has the situation well in hand. Now, I know it seems like I have no particular side in this. I believe that the political process works because it remains in balance. And that when we have a larger pool of candidates to pick from, people with the passion and the desire to outline a course for America's future, instead of the same old, we have a president that has been in political office for the majority of his adult life, and there's been some controversy around him and his family and Hunter Biden and laptops and gun charges and all of that stuff. And then we have a former president with controversy after controversy and lawsuits and racist remarks and sexist remarks and felony charges, and his former associates are going to prison. I believe that one person just pled guilty today to perjury, for crying out loud. This is the best that we have to offer. So you see why we entitled this episode Liberty in Flux. And most of us are, those of us that are registered to vote and that are voters, seem somewhat apathetic to the entire process. That we're going to be either a yellow dog Democrat or a yellow dog Republican, and realizing that we're not winning regardless of which side we're choosing. That our country seems to be at war with itself. That our identity is being called into question, not just at home, but abroad. That our allies are questioning the American voter and our desire to put a former president of Trump's caliber back in office, as if we didn't have enough. And some will say, well, when Trump was in office, he did the PPP and the EIDL because of he cared about small businesses. No, that was a global pandemic that did that. And even then, he made outrageous statements and comments about where the impetus of that pandemic started. There are some Americans who believe that Donald Trump's good for the country. He'll get some of our contentious neighbors in line, and I'm not so sure that's true. And there are those who are dissatisfied with the performance of President Joe Biden, which brings me back to what I said just a few moments ago. Why aren't there more candidates on both sides? What does that say about the power structure in our two-party system? What does that say about the concentration of power that candidates are selected because of how much money they can raise? I'm not sure that's a system that remains sustainable. I believe we need more people of courage to stand up and challenge the status quo, whether you're Republican or Democrat. Because if we don't start engaging more in this process, if we don't start demanding more from our elected officials, if we minimize the spirit of competition that has always been a hallmark of the American psyche, I'm not sure what's going to become of our country, politically, socially, culturally, economically. We're just all going along to get along. This is affecting everyday American lives in every aspect of it. given the fact that, yes, the president is an executive and we must look at midterm elections and we got to look at Congress and we've got to call people to account. So this is not just this arena, but we have people in the House and the Senate that are just silent, that are unwilling to call out people within their own party who may be ideologically opposed to this process. Aren't you wondering the same thing I'm wondering, which is why that is? Who is making that decision and why? What are the resolutions so that we, the everyday American people, can get on with our lives and have a government that we can feel somewhat proud of instead of this flippin' circus that we have running around right now? You know, our liberty really is in flux. This looks like a three-ring circus. It's a joke on almost every late-night talk show. And yet there are real consequences to the decision that we're going to make tomorrow, November, and what comes after that. I just wanted to come and give you this message so that you would have some food for thought, some for you to think about. Maybe you'll look a little bit closer. But give thought to the things that are going on in your life, actually not just in your life, but in the lives of your fellow Americans who may not be as fortunate as you. Because at some point it's going to affect you. And I know I am looking and doing my best to be very, very balanced. I will come out and say this though. I'm not happy with either choice we make. I think Biden has been plain vanilla rapper. And then on the other end, we've got Bozo the Clown, who seems to be outsmarting, outwitting, and outlasting everyone else, as if this is a game of Survivor. Then again, he was a host on a reality television show, so maybe he knows something that we don't. So we have an elder political player in President Joe Biden, and we have former President Donald Trump, who tomorrow could knock out Nikki Haley and be the GOP's nominee for the highest seat in the land yet again. And it comes back to this for me. What does this say about my fellow Americans who may not have the same political aspirations or objectives or values or mission that I have? Why is it that we are sort of following party lines, even though the price of milk is the same for you as it is for me? That mortgages and rents are going through the roof, not just for you, but also for me. And neither party can seem to address those things that are affecting us all. The bank is going to do a massive layoff, and that's going to affect my friends and your friends as well. Because people that work at the banks are Republican and Democrat as well. And you can come back and say, well, they do it on the Democratic watch and blah, 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 and yada, yada, yada. You may have a point. My point is, at what point are we, the American people, going to align our forces? Doesn't mean we have to agree. Our beliefs can be different. That's why we have a two-party system. But our values is what comes into question. Do we value these differing opinions. Doesn't seem that we have in the last 12 years, maybe even 16, that our values have become so divisive that we can't even see the banana in the tailpipe, that each of us in our respective parties are falling for whatever narrative is fed to us. And so we are reacting like sheep. Perhaps we shouldn't. Perhaps we should demand more, not just from our political leaders, but from each other. Have those hard conversations and discussions. And if you're like me, I hope you find what I find, that our values of wanting affordable places to live and to be able to put food on the table and to be able to have safe neighborhoods and to reinvigorate the American dream, to be respected around the world again, to have a strong military, to have affordable health care, to have our children and elderly looked after and taken care of, to have jobs for everyday Americans, so that the burden is not on the middle class as it is. Then in that, we stand in solidarity. And if we focus on those things and move with that voice, even though we have different parties, we can push similar values. It's a different approach, but the similar values. We can't even agree on that as Americans, it seems. And the reason why I say that is because it's showing in the polls how we feel. Perhaps we should work at being consistent and being more unified as the American tribe. Because right now, this could go either way. Either way is dangerous. Apathy is really the opposite of love. And most of us say we love America, and yet we seem very apathetic. So I encourage you as you get out to vote, think more than your party. Think about the things that are affecting you and your neighbors on the other side of the aisles. This is for both conservatives and liberals, Republicans and Democrats. That's it for my, op-ed, conversation, political rambling. We're going to come back at our regularly scheduled episode on Thursday. We skipped last week because I wanted to do some research and gather some information about the topic that we're having today. And folks, it's a lot out there, and we're going to follow this. This is something that I believe is vitally important to the future of our country. And I encourage you to do the same. So as you have those conversations, don't with people that are like-minded. Well, folks, there you have it. Episode 2 of Our Liberty in Flux, our discussion about Trump's historic win. The Supreme Court was unanimous in its decision. And tomorrow's Super Tuesday. We'll keep you posted on results. We thank you for your time and attention. Hope you catch us next time. We're going to be coming back real soon. And as always, I'm that brother of light, dropping wisdom in your left ear and knowledge in your right.